But today I got from used books, I think it might be out of print, The Secret of the Golden Flower, a Chinese book of life, translated and explained by Richard Wilhelm with the commentary by C.G. Jung. And as you see on the cover, it has a mandala of the golden flower. And I was sort of taken with the translator's preface here. This was translated quite a while ago. It was translated by Cary Baynes, who was one of Dr. Jung's very early and closest apostles. And so it was translated in March of 1931. And so I just wanted to read a couple of things that she had to say about the book. The original German, this is called Translator's Preface. The original German edition of The Secret of the Golden Flower, of which the following is the authorized English translation, appeared first in the autumn of 1929. On March 1, 1930, Richard Wilhelm died. In May 1930, memorial services were held in Munich, and Jung was asked to deliver the principal address. The latter finds an appropriate place in the English version, which is published a year or more after the co-author's death. The address will be welcomed, but only for what it tells the reader of Wilhelm, but for the further light, not only for what it tells the reader of Wilhelm, but for the further light it throws on the standpoint of the East. The relation of the West to Eastern thought is highly paradoxical and confusing one. On the one side, as Jung points out, the East creeps in among us by the back door of the unconscious and strongly influences us in perverted forms, and on the other, we repel it with violent prejudice as concerned with a fine-spun metaphysics that is poisonous to the scientific mind. If anyone is in doubt as to how far the East influences us in secret ways, let him but briefly investigate the fields covered today by what is called occult thought. Millions of people are included in these movements, and Eastern ideas dominate all of them. Since there is nowhere any sign of a psychological understanding of the phenomena on which they are based, they undergo a complete twisting and are a real menace in our world. A partial realization of what is going on in this direction, together with the Westerner's native ignorance and mistrust of the world of inner experience, builds up the prejudice against the reality of Eastern wisdom. When the wisdom of the Chinese is laid before a Westerner, he is very likely to ask with a skeptical lift of the brows why such profound wisdom did not save China from its present horrors. Of course, he does not stop to think that the Chinese asks with an equal skepticism why the much boasted scientific knowledge of the West, not to mention its equally boasted Christian ethics, did not save it from a world war. But as a matter of fact, present conditions in China do not invalidate Chinese wisdom, nor did the Great War prove the futility of science. In both cases, we are dealing with the negative sides of principles under which East and West live, and it has not yet been given either to individuals or to nations to manage the vices of their virtues. Mastery of the inner world with a relative contempt for the outer must inevitably lead to great catastrophes. Mastery of the outer world to the exclusion of the inner delivers us over to the demonic forces of the latter and keeps us barbaric despite all outward forms of culture. The solution cannot be found either in deriding Eastern spirituality as impotent or by mistrusting science as a destroyer of humanity. We have to see that the spirit must lean on science as its guide in the world of reality, and that science must turn to the spirit for the meaning of life. Such is the point of view established in this book. Through the combined efforts of Wilhelm and Jung, we have for the first time a way of understanding and appreciating Eastern wisdom which satisfies all sides of our minds. It has been taken out of metaphysics and placed in psychological experience. We approach it with an entirely new tool and are protected from the perversions the East undergoes at the hands of cult mongers of the West. At the same time, its meaning for us is greatly deepened when we know that despite the gulf separating us from the East, we follow exactly similar paths when once we give heed to the inner world. But this book not only gives us a new approach to the East, it also strengthens the point of view evolving in the West with respect to the psyche. The reshaping of values and progress today forces the modern man out of the nursery world of collective traditions into an adult's world of individual choice. He knows that his choice and his fate now turn upon his understanding of himself. Much has been taught him in recent years about the hitherto unsuspected elements in his psyche, but the emphasis is all too often on the static side alone, so that he finds himself possessed of little more than an inventory of contents, the nature of which serves to burden him with a sense of weariness rather than to spur him on to master the problems that confront him. Yet it is precisely the need of understanding himself in terms of change and renewal which most grips the imagination of modern man. Having seen the world of matter disappear before his scientific eye and reappear as a world of energy, he comes to ask himself a bold question. Does he not contain within his psyche a store of unexplored forces, which, if rightly understood, would give him a new vision of himself and help safeguard the future for him? In this book, his question is answered from two widely different sources, Chinese yoga and analytical psychology. Stripped of its archaic setting, the secret of the golden flower is the secret of the powers of growth latent in the psyche, and these same powers, as they reveal themselves in the minds of Western men, also form the theme of Jung's commentary. In the commentary, he has shown the profound psychological development resulting from the right relationship to the forces within the psyche. So I'm reading from the actual book, The Secret of the Golden Flower, and that was the translator's note by Cary Baynes, dated 1931. Now, this particular edition came out in 1961, and so in it there's a foreword to the 5th German edition, which has been translated, and this foreword is written by Salomé Wilhelm. I don't know what Salomé's relationship to Richard Wilhelm. Okay, so this is short, but I wanted to read it to you. This particular edition of The Secret of the Golden Flower, Chinese Book of Life, translated by Richard Wilhelm, with the golden flower mandala on the cover, I believe is out of print, but I was able to get it from used books on Amazon, and so you may be able to find it there as well. In this particular edition, which was published in 1961 by Harvest Books and Harcourt Brace Jovanovich, New York and London. So in this particular book, which is a paperback, Salomé Wilhelm says this, she's referring to the fact that there's another text in this version of The Secret of the Golden Flower also. And this, which I'll explain here quickly. Richard Wilhelm wrote the following brief introduction to this meditation text in 1926. Quote, "The Ming Ching, or Book of Consciousness and Life, was written by Liu Huayang in the year 1794. The author was born in the province of Jiangxi and later became a monk in the monastery of the Double Lotus Flower in the province of Anhui. The translation is from a new edition of 1,000 copies published with The Secret of the Golden Flower in 1921 by a man with the pseudonym Hui Chen-tzu, which translates to be "He who has become conscious of truth." The text combines Buddhist and Taoist directions for meditation. The basic view is that at birth, the two spheres of the psyche, consciousness and the unconscious, become separated. Consciousness is the element marking what is separated off, individualized in a person, and the unconscious is the element that unites him with the cosmos. The unification of the two elements via meditation is the principle upon which the work is based. The unconscious must be inseminated by consciousness, being immersed in it. In this way, the unconscious is activated and thus, together with an enriched consciousness, enters upon a superpersonal mental level in the form of spiritual rebirth. This rebirth then leads first to a progressing inner differentiation of the conscious state into autonomous thought structures. However, the conclusion of the meditation leads of necessity to the wiping out of all differences in the final integrated life, which is free of opposites. Okay, she goes on to thank some people, but I thought that would be interesting to hear those two perspectives on The Secret of the Golden Flower as it actually exists. And in this edition, Dr. Jung's commentary appears at the end of the book instead of at the beginning by his own choice and request.